Hi, I'm Angelic Alchemy. Welcome to my channel. This is Unmasking Spiritual Deception, Liberation from Witchcraft and Narcissism. This is episode 12, and we're going to go deeper in on my experience with the smear campaign. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Before my life suddenly took a turn for the worst, I never even saw it coming. I was too young, too inexperienced in life to navigate such complex adult situations, partly because I was never given the proper tools to navigate situations like this, and partly because the people I surrounded myself with unknowingly were absolutely evil. But all things considered, I feel that what happened to me was so extremely diabolical that even the most well-adjusted person would have struggled to survive it. It took a very long time for me to even understand what was happening. To be honest, most of my insight did not come until towards the end of this 5-year-long nightmare. It just seemed like suddenly out of the blue one day, everything started going wrong in my life, which absolutely mystified me because I had just finally started building the life that I had always wanted. In the past, I had struggled with addiction, toxic partners, the legal system, and mental health, for starters. And somehow, I had managed to overcome these hardships, mostly by myself. I wasn't perfect. I was still learning and growing, but I was proud of myself, and anyone else who had genuinely cared for my well-being was proud of me too. Which made it all the more confusing when my life seemed to inexplicably go to shit overnight. I was well aware by this point of how karma worked, having had experienced my share of the bad karma that I had racked up throughout the years that I was in active addiction. And then coming out of that and starting to turn my life around, I had noticed a clear as day difference in my outer circumstances reflecting the inner growth and work I had been doing. So when my life started to look more like a series of unfortunate events than my dream life, I was thoroughly confused. I couldn't understand what was happening. I felt like God was mad at me, and I didn't have the slightest idea why. It started out with me struggling to stay awake when driving to and from work. My schedule was insanely hectic, but prior to all of these incidents, I was balancing and maintaining it all pretty well. So I, of course, figured that my schedule must be finally catching up with me and didn't think too much of it. One day, I was driving to work, and coincidentally, earlier this day, I was at my friend at the time's mother's funeral, and present at this funeral was this third-party dark witch that I speak of so often because she has made it her mission to become me and destroy me at the same time. So at this point in time, I had no idea this person was a third party or a witch or obsessed with me. So later on that day, I'm driving to work. I'm driving over this big bridge because I worked on Clearwater Beach, and I'm in bumper-to-bumper traffic. And I was struggling to keep my eyes open, and I accidentally bumped into the car in front of me. Now I'm talking, we weren't even going 5 miles an hour, so there was not a scratch. In any normal scenario, we would have simply exchanged information and been on our way. But that's not what happened. The guy that I hit was foreign and also a complete jerk. He refused to so much as speak to me and instantly called the police before even getting out of the vehicle to see if there was any damage. So when I walked up to the car, he was already on the phone with the police. I made some smart-ass remark to him about how in America, we usually get out to see if there's any damage before calling the cops, and I walked back to sit in my vehicle. It was very calm, cool and collected when I said it, which was new for me. I was always kind of a hothead, so to speak. Not for no reason, but I could get, riled up pretty easily, we'll put it that way. So when the cops did arrive about an hour later, maybe more, the officer said that the man I had hit told him that I was screaming at him and acting belligerent. My mouth must have dropped all the way down to my lap. He couldn't be serious. This was probably the only time in a situation like this that I had actually been able to maintain my composure and stay calm, cool, and collected. Something that I had been consistently working on for the past few years. I told the officer that was not true and told him what actually had transpired. He then asked if he could search my vehicle, which I told him, no, he may not. He then claimed that he smelled weed and asked me to exit the vehicle. He asked me again if he could search the car, and again I said no. So he then handcuffed me, to which I asked if I was being detained, and he said I was. The bullshit continued from there. My boyfriend had left an almost empty Twisted Tea can in the center console, which was an unfortunate surprise for me, but not the worst of them. After searching my car and not finding any weed, shaking my head, I'm reading, he had a female officer search me. In my pocket, there was a quarter of a Subutex pill wrapped in paper. The officer supposedly tested it, and he said it was cocaine. I suspect he did not test it at all, obviously. I could not believe what was happening. If I had thought that there was any way in hell that I would have been pulled out of the car and searched when the police came, they would not have found any such thing. I expected them to come, take our information, write me a ticket, and we'd all be on our way. Instead, I was being arrested for possession of cocaine and getting a ticket for careless driving, and an open container in my brand new car was impounded. And of course, I didn't make it into work that night. Things didn't get any better after that. When I got to the jail and had to change into jail clothes, I was again, unfortunately, surprised with the fact that I had forgotten I had a bag of MDMA in my bra. Yeah, not my best day. So, now I got hit with another charge, introduction to contraband, on top of everything else. This one incident could pretty much sum up and set the tone for the next 3 years of my life, and I was completely clueless. Not long after that, I totaled my brand new car. At 30 years old, it was the first bad accident I had ever been in. Then the next day, I dropped my brand new phone at work, and the whole screen cracked. Shortly after that, I ended up losing my job. These were not isolated incidents. They kept happening, each one like a shock to my system, each time feeling like the ground was disappearing beneath my feet. Bad luck hit me time and time again. Things that had been going well were now a disaster. And every effort that I put forth into trying to put things back in order just seemed to end in another disaster. My life was slowly going down the drain, and not only did I have no idea why, but I had no idea what to do about it. I felt lost, hopeless, cursed, and it seemed like I had no one and nowhere to turn for help. For the longest time, I tried to deny it, to push it down, pretend like it wasn't as bad as it seemed. I no longer recognized the life I was living or the person that I saw when I looked in the mirror. It all felt so foreign to who I really am. I'm naturally buoyant, playful, childlike at heart, which makes what happened to me all the more devastating and sinister. My relationship started going down the drain. I also had no idea why. I wanted desperately to return to my natural state. To push through and be strong. But I didn't know how to process it. How do you process something when you don't even know where to begin? It's overwhelming, to say the least. This heaviness that didn't match who I am at my core. I had no idea what I was dealing with, so I had not the slightest idea where to turn for help, which didn't really matter, to be honest, because nobody would have helped me. I didn't understand at the time that all the people around me who smiled in my face and acted like they cared about me were secretly conspiring behind my back to get rid of me. They had long since been slandering my name all over town, telling anyone and everyone they knew vicious lies about me, so by the time I had gotten to this point, they all had this idea of me in their heads that I was a drug addict, a prostitute, a lazy bum who begged for money, or used my spouse for money, and so on and so forth. Perhaps the hardest part was just understanding why this was all happening to me. I was raised to believe that people were generally good, that life was fundamentally positive. And I know in my heart that my moral character and work ethic far exceeded most of those who I had met. I know that I'm a good person because I had put in so much work to become one. An exceptional person, even. I go out of my way to be kind and empathetic to others. I take the shopping cart back to the store. I play with babies in line to give their mom a break for a second. I give money to the homeless people I see standing on the corner when I have it. I pick up litter when I'm at the park. I compliment people every chance that I get just to spread love and kindness. You get the point. I would never take someone else's spouse or even be tempted to think of such a thing. In fact, I would go tell that person that their spouse was hitting on me or whatever the case was, because that's the kind of person I am. I'm always honest. I give good advice when asked. I don't lie, cheat, steal, or betray anyone's trust. I don't gossip. I don't talk bad about others. I will speak the truth about the terrible things that people have done to me when I believe it's necessary for my healing or to help others with theirs. But I would never knowingly spread lies or even talk about people's private business without their permission. I genuinely strive to be kind cooperative, and to show love to others. I have strong morals, and I uphold my values to the best of my ability. I put consistent, conscious effort into trying to grow, heal, and be better than I was the day before. I'm a good mother, a good spouse, friend, daughter, etc. So I could not, for the life of me, understand why this was happening to me. Why are all these horrible things happening to me back to back? Why is everyone suddenly treating me like I'm the problem when all I've ever done was try and be caring and kind to them? Why did I suddenly feel like nothing that I did was good enough, and no matter how hard I tried, people were judging me unfairly? Unpacking this question went so much deeper into the human psyche than I ever could have imagined. Things aren't always black and white. In fact, they hardly ever are. It's easy to say most people are generally good inside, or most people suck, but the reality is so much more complicated. People can only meet you at the level where they are, and most individuals that I have known in my life do not even come close to measuring up to the level that I am at. And that is intuitively, intellectually, spiritually, and in many other ways. But although I had realized that fact early on, I was never boastful or arrogant because of it. I am, and always will be, one of the most humble people I know. When it comes to interacting with others, I am highly self-aware and extremely observant. Most people don't realize this about me. Despite my friendly, bubbly demeanor, I am constantly observing everyone and everything around me. I rarely speak on these observations unless they are relevant to something, but I notice a lot more than your average person. On the surface, I am free-spirited and childlike in nature. I strive to keep a positive mindset and to try and find the joy in life in every way that I can. I'm kind, generous, I actually try to get along and work well with others. I'll admit when I'm wrong, I'll apologize, and I will put in effort to improve anything about me that could potentially cause issues with others, most of all the ones that I love and care for. I forgive easily, and I'm the most dependable, loyal, and real friend that anybody could hope to have. Although oftentimes they tend not to realize this until it's too late. But because I am sweet, cooperative, loving, forgiving, people tend to think that I'm dumb and naive, and in this case, an easy target. There's something particularly cruel about the way certain people seem to take pleasure in dimming my light. My energy is magnetic. I have a light about me that people can't help but notice. I always felt like everywhere I went, people were looking at me. While I am pretty and have a cute demeanor, I'm not a 5'10", drop-dead gorgeous blonde that everyone turns their heads to check out. So it had always perplexed me that everywhere I went, people always seemed to be staring at me. I now understand that it is mostly my energy as an earth angel that causes this. Most people don't know how to take my energy. They misread my friendliness and helpful nature as showing off or as having a hidden motive, which could not be further from the truth. But for some reason or other, people seem to view me as a threat, as competition, especially women. Every job that I've ever had, they love me at first. My personality is magnetic, like I mentioned, and people of all kinds are naturally attracted to me. Until I start to outshine them, that is. I used to think that this was specific to the jobs that I had. I had worked in the restaurant business for over 15 years, and I would always say that it felt like being back in high school again. The petty behavior, the cliques, the lies, the gossip that was spread when your coworkers became intimidated by your performance. It's all so high school. But I have since learned that this mean girl behavior is not isolated to the restaurant business. In fact, it seems to be literally everywhere, no matter the gender, age, or location. The experience that taught me this was nothing less than the hardest, worst, most painful time of my entire life. And it would come from none other than those closest to me. My family was not overly affectionate or involved in my life. I've always been the black sheep. I stopped going to family events for the most part by the age of 30 because I was tired of being the butt of all the jokes. It was no secret that I had struggled in my past. I started smoking, drinking, and dealing drugs in high school, which of course went hand in hand with toxic relationships and getting in trouble with the law. I also battled a pain pill addiction for most of my 20s. I had just started finally getting my life back on track when I came into contact with a group of people who would prove themselves to be my greatest enemies, but also my greatest lesson. Almost all of the knowledge that I have obtained concerning narcissists, demons, witchcraft, and such came from my experiences with these people and the research I did as a result. An observer viewing this situation from the outside would most likely see this situation for exactly what it is. These people were extremely triggered by my light, and their emotional immaturity and lack of self-awareness caused them to be completely enveloped by their jealousy and envy towards me. For individuals who do not know how to look at themselves or process their emotions in a healthy manner, jealousy is dangerous. While jealousy is a natural human emotion that we all are prone to feeling if someone has something that we want, that intense emotion is meant to inspire us to work towards what we want. But for narcissists who do not have the ability to self-reflect or any desire to heal, they instead let it fester and grow into envy, which only spirals out of control from there. Envy is not simply feeling jealous that someone has something that you don't. Envy is wanting what someone has and not wanting that person to have it, and then extends to wanting to harm that person because of that fact. So for example, we have an emotionally immature and vindictive feminine who struggles with insecurity and forming healthy connections. She steps out on her boyfriend and doesn't think much of it because she feels like there's plenty of fish in the sea. She searches for validation in the beds of various men and views other women as competition. When she learns that her ex-boyfriend, who she decided was not going to amount to anything, has been leveling up and is in a happy, healthy connection, this for some reason triggers her. Even though prior to learning this information, she wanted nothing to do with him. She takes this as a personal attack. She views it as him choosing me over her, which she equates to me being better than her. So she formulates a plan of attack to teach me a lesson and steal him back. Now, I have no idea any of this is going on. I barely even knew she existed. But nonetheless, this person is now dedicating her every waking thought to how she's going to destroy my reputation and convince my spouse to choose her over me. Now, this person was very good at lying and manipulating men. No doubt a skill she developed early on with her not-so-present father. She cleverly enacted a whole scheme to come in as a friend, presenting herself as if she wanted to help her ex with this new love interest, which is me. And since he was not only immature and emotionally immature and inexperienced with women, despite what he may think, he didn't understand that women like this existed or what these kind of people were actually capable of. And he fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. Now, the reason he fell for this so easily, besides his views and prior experience with women being completely warped and skewed thanks to his malignant narcissist of a mother, was his fear of intimacy, vulnerability, and a deep-seated insecurity that by all logical reasoning this man should not have. We can pretty much thank his mother for that as well. And his ex capitalized off of it. He was scared of being vulnerable and of actually feeling emotions. His experiences growing up told him that emotions were not safe. He was also afraid of losing himself because of the emotional abuse and lack of empathy he was met with as a child. When your mother is a narcissist, everything is about her. The emotional needs and psychological well-being of the child are irrelevant to her. She views the child as an extension of her, something that she can use to make herself look better, instead of a living, breathing human with their own wants, needs, and desires. So, as a child, anytime he showed any kind of emotions, he was met with cruelty or criticism. Having a narcissistic mother in itself is traumatizing, but this woman is in a league all of her own. Before this whole experience, I did not have the capacity to understand the situation for what it actually was. Because as a pure-hearted, genuine person, I could not even have imagined that there were people like this. Not that I didn't believe in the existence of evil or that people were capable of this behavior, but more so that I did not believe people like this were able to portray themselves as upright and decent and fool me, for sure. I was completely ignorant that I was literally around people who were evil to their core. Not all of those involved are pure evil. Some are just lost and misguided. For many different reasons, specific to each individual, there is some unresolved trauma that caused them to be able to be used and manipulated by the enemy. So back to this woman. She's not only a covert malignant narcissist, but she's also a covert dark witch. Some people refer to them as spiritual narcissists, basically the worst of the worst. This is the kind of person who on the surface appears to be your average, sweet, nurturing mother who lives a normal, upright life and has morals, values, and cares about the well-being of others. But on the inside, this woman is absolutely wicked. This family has been participating in dark magic and demonic covenants since before my counterpart was born, and who knows how long before. She has passed on her passed on mother, and her brother, at minimum, were aware of who this man was destined to be before he was even born. My counterpart. It has been revealed to me that they attempted some kind of destiny swap ritual while his mother was still carrying him in her womb, which may have led to the demise of her mother, which would be his grandmother. As a child, he may have shown signs of being extremely spiritually gifted, and these people who were meant to love and protect this child instead did rituals on him to steal his light and in essence, his destiny. There may have been another unsuccessful attempt at some kind of destiny swapping before these people decided to do the unthinkable. Now, the brother of this disgusting excuse for a mother is a pedophile and is the head of a higher-up, some kind of Masonic lodge, Eastern Stars or something similar. And if you are not already aware of this, the way that a lot of these warlocks and witches siphon energy and attempt to steal destinies is through inappropriate interactions with children. These are demons working through people, and they allow them to because it brings them wealth, power, status, and an ability to walk around appearing to be good people without actually ever taking accountability for their wicked actions. Trigger warning. So, to accomplish their desired results, these people decided to abuse this beautiful, innocent child in a way that would benefit them and change this child's life for the worse. They were very much aware that this would change how he saw the world, his ability to trust, give, and receive love, among other aspects. This worked in perfectly with his mother's plan for this child. He was dubbed the family sacrifice. These demonic covenants require constant sacrifices, and this family was more than willing to sacrifice this divine child's future, happiness, success, and stability for them to benefit off of it financially. I'm sure you can see why it's so hard to understand this dynamic. No one that has a normal thought process would be able to comprehend something like this. This kind of evil is truly only understood by those who have seen it with their own eyes. The effects of growing up around people like this and being subjected to every kind of abuse you can imagine under the guise of these people caring for you and loving you are, of course, severely damaging. These types of narcissists specifically groom their children to be people pleasers, to not have boundaries, and to not know what their emotional needs are or to have any idea how to have them met in a healthy manner. This mother, in particular, strategically weaponized love. Quote, love, which is actually affection and attention. Weaponized it against him growing up. I can't say if all malignant narcissist mothers do these kinds of things intentionally, but in this case, I am quite certain of this. Her end result in this sadistic game, where she plays God in the lives of others, was to have her son grow into someone who could not easily make their own decisions, who was afraid to take risks or step out of their comfort zone, who was insecure and unsure of themselves. This would ensure that he would not be able to go off and be successful in life, leaving her behind without a supply and without the ability to steal what was destined for him in karmic transfer. Of course, being raised with a mother like this, you would not have witnessed an actual functional relationship or any kind of healthy communication skills whatsoever. Instead, you would have learned to hide things, lie, sneak around, show up how you thought people wanted you to, and to not have boundaries or even understand the essential nature of doing so. So I think you have a pretty clear idea of who this woman is. Let's move on. So now we have this sadistic, pure evil karmic mother figure who is benefiting off of ensuring that her son, who is a divine being, stays insecure, unsure of himself, and in a toxic, low vibrational mindset so she can continue to karmic transfer with him, and as a bonus, make sure she can always use him for her narcissistic supply. So, she comes up with a plan that is just as evil as she is. She's going to proposition this karmic ex, and this is where she becomes the third party. She's going to proposition her to come in between her son, divine masculine, and his God-ordained spouse. She's going to slither her way in his energy, portraying herself to be someone who cares about his best interests, and ever so sneakily infiltrate his connection and coerce him into sabotaging what he wants most in the world. This karmic didn't need any additional justification in her mind to attack the divine feminine and their union. I'm sure she was already formulating her own plan. But if that weren't enough, to sweeten the deal, this karmic mother revealed that there was some kind of trust fund or an inheritance involved that was attached to this masculine that he did not know about. So, there's some large amount of money that this karmic mother has control of currently. And this mother was actually intending to go to this masculine. The mother figure could have been using this money his whole life, whether this is in the spiritual realm, meaning destiny altering, energy siphoning, demonic contracts, or if this is actually real money that someone left his DM when they passed and he never received it, is unclear at this point. It could be both of these or something similar. So this mother, assisted by her henchmen, the karmic third party, and her flying monkeys, the karmic sister, karmic cousin, karmic aunt, etc., got together to concoct a plan to launch a smear campaign on the divine feminine, subtly spreading lies and malicious gossip over a drawn-out period of time. The way that they accomplish this is to frame it in a way that sounds like they're concerned for this person's well-being. I shouldn't say anything, but I feel that someone needs to know what's going on. I'm just worried about her mental health because of the incident. He's just acting so out of character. I can't imagine what could have caused this change in his behavior. I think maybe it's he's around that girl too much. I think she's a bad influence. You get the point. So, while I had absolutely no idea any of this was transpiring, I was unknowingly allowing these women access into my life and providing them with the exact information they needed to help them in their attack to get rid of me. So far, this all may seem innocent enough from an outsider's point of view, and in the beginning, some of the flying monkeys may very well have disillusioned themselves into believing that it was just for fun. But even at that point, they would have had to really put effort into convincing themselves that that were true. While on the surface, it may have looked like an older version of any Mean Girls plot to get their competition out of the way, at the center of this plot was pure evil, right out of the devil's playbook. To give you an idea of where these karmic women's minds were while devising this scheme, I'll offer a little insight into the mind of a sociopath, or a Jezebel. These women have experienced something early on in life, some traumatic experience that the pain was just too much and they lacked the ability, the tools, knowledge, and support, etc., to heal from it, and this pain has been internalized. Being in these dark emotions and a low vibrational state would make them susceptible to the influence of dark entities. They wouldn't even have noticed when the entity moved into their vessel, just slowly assuming the traits and qualities of the entity, and learning to believe that the thoughts, beliefs, and habits are their own. They integrate this entity into their identity, and that is one reason why it's so hard and near impossible for a narcissist to change or get delivered. So now, these women and narcissists in general have learned to manipulate people and situations to turn things in their favor. They have learned that if they show up in the world as upright and moral, they can use their intellect and charisma by twisting the narrative to fit their agenda. Telling half-truths and giving just enough information to make people think about the situation and come to their own conclusions. Everything that they say, every action they take, every interaction with others is all strategically calculated to obtain a specific goal, and all of these goals will culminate. All of these goals will culminate to form their master plan. They skillfully weave a web of deceit and confusion, crafting various versions of their story according to the individual it is being told to, which of course always paints them as the victim or the hero, never the problem or the villain. A narcissist's worst fear is to be seen exactly for who they are. They work behind the scenes for years to make sure they manipulate others' views of them and of the intended target. So this could look like you being at your in-laws' house for the holidays. The whole family's there. Everything seems to be running smoothly. Everyone's getting along. The karmic mother-in-law, sister-in-law, and whoever are intentionally making sure that you feel left out, not involving you in activities labeled as girl stuff, but of course not being obvious about it. When all of the family is present, they act just as warm to you as anyone else. Although the most vindictive of the Jezebels may not be able to resist a chance to criticize you on your abilities in any aspect of your life, masking it in a facade of concern or genuine interest. It honestly can be easily missed, especially considering that as an empath, most likely you're already trying to talk yourself out of thinking that everyone hates you, and attempting to not dissect everything they do and say to use it as verification of that fact. And of course, if you even would have dreamed of pointing anything like this out to your person, you would have been met with some form of gaslighting, whether intentional or not. But when you all go into the living room to open presents on Christmas, they will have made sure that there are no seats for you to sit in, to ensure that you're made to be standing awkwardly in the corner, or at least far away from your spouse, who again is oblivious to the fact that these women are coming at his wife in that energy, partially because his narcissistic mother is choosing that time to show affection and attention to him, intentionally utilizing the emotional wounds in her son that she's inflicted herself. You see, no matter how terrible of a mother anyone's had growing up, a child is always going to want love and validation from them. Having a narcissistic parent is traumatic, no matter what the situation, but when it's the mother, it affects the children in a different way. Your mother is the one person who's supposed to love, nurture, teach, and guide you in life, to teach you how to deal with obstacles, emotions, and painful experiences. But when instead you're raised with someone who only sees their own desires as important and is not interested in showing you the love and affection you need to properly develop, it hits different. It's messed up. It often takes adult children of narcissistic mothers to have some kind of experience like this to wake up to who these people actually are. The way these people are able to continually get away with their sneakiness is that those of us who feel empathy have a very hard time wrapping our heads around the fact that people can be that evil and interact with you every day as if they're just like you and me. And when it's your mother, who you have an unconscious desire for her validation and approval, and she specifically understands this and weaponizes it against you, plus using consistent black magic, binding rituals, mental magic, etc. to keep you confused and living in illusions, it can be extremely hard to break free or to even understand what you're dealing with. So I digress.
These women do not have regular emotions like we do, meaning they do not feel compassion for anyone or anything outside of themselves. They do not have the ability to feel or show genuine empathy towards others who are feeling pain. On the contrary, they spend an immense amount of time and energy studying the emotions of others and practicing how to mimic those emotions so they appear normal to others. They are aware enough to understand that they lack the ability to feel joy and actual fulfillment or love towards others past revolving around what they can do for them. As a result, they feel resentment towards those who have the ability to feel joy, and especially those who are generally able to maintain a cheery, positive outlook on life. So now, in the mind of narcissists, they have all the reason in the world to justify their involvement in this smear campaign and humiliation ritual. Some examples are, she had it coming for being stupid, naive, and too dumb to understand. She thinks she's better than us. She's totally using the masculine for his money or his looks or his status. She's probably only with him to piss off this karmic third party, X. She wants to take her son away from her. If she's not around anymore, then I can take her spot. I can be seen as her, loved like her, respected and valued like her. If we get rid of her, we can keep benefiting financially from the masculine's pain and struggles and gain health, wealth, status at his expense. Continue to manipulate and control him to ensure that we can stay in charge of his finances in the spiritual realm and the physical realm. Now, these are just some examples. I'm sure that they came up with so many other, quote, reasons and, quote, justifications and excuses as to why it was okay to do what they were doing, and how the ends they desired justified the means of destroying an innocent woman's life, and as a result, her children's. The plot was sneaky, the plan was intricate, and involved a lot of people and moving parts in order to power this diabolical machine that was this community of karmics. They thought this whole idea was foolproof. This karmic mother was particularly pleased with herself at one point, when she was under the impression she had won. She thought that her genius evil plan had worked out exactly as she imagined, pulling strings from behind the scenes to ensure that all of the puppets played their part precisely as she meant for them to make it appear like she didn't have a hand in the whole thing, or even any idea of the existence of a plan. Who? Certainly not your mother. Who would even say such a thing? Whether the karmic monster-in-law initiated this karmic third party X into magic, or she found it on her own, is unknown to me at this point. But since this mother figure had been dabbling in the occult since before my counterpart was born, it was only a matter of time until his narcissistic X stumbled across black magic. Whatever the case, this person went as far as to start researching every kind of witchcraft and dark arts she could, eventually becoming addicted to spiritually attacking me. She joined forces with a coven of some sort and spun this whole narrative about how I was a homewrecker and I was attacking her, presenting herself to sound like she was me and I her. She would go to people with spiritual gifts and readers, and when they picked up on the energy, she had been cloaking in my energy, so they would think that she was the divine feminine and I was the karmic, and that's how she got all these people to help her attack me. She gathered others who already did not like me for one reason or another, or who were feeling some type of way about my presence in my counterpart's life. Since he was good-looking and popular, there were quite a few women who would have preferred me out of the way, but prior to this never had any real reason to come at me in any way. But this false narrative that this Jezebel hoe ex of his had been spreading around provided the justification that they needed to hop on the hate train. I had no idea that I even had one enemy, nonetheless a whole group of them. So when the attacks came, I questioned my sanity, exactly as they meant for me to. Around this time, I had just started going through my spiritual awakening. I just recently had begun believing in supernatural occurrences, ghosts, demons, etc. And that's only because I had come face to face with them on so many occasions. So when the supernatural experience started becoming more severe and occurring more frequently, I had no idea what was going on. I was constantly getting attacked by entities and all kinds of mental attacks with intrusive thoughts of self-hatred and hopelessness. This group of witches, warlocks, led by this psychopath karmic X and the karmic mother pulling the strings behind the scenes, were specifically targeting my confidence, my sense of self-worth, my sanity, and my stability. All of these people ganged together to try and break me down and get rid of me because they were threatened by my divine feminine energy. Men who feared they couldn't control it or were envious of it, and women who wanted to steal it for themselves. Behind their fake smiles and polite interactions, they despised me. They viewed me as a threat and an obstacle to their success in one way or another. They started this secret beef with me and a competition that I knew nothing about. I never wanted to compete with anyone. My mind does not even work that way. All I ever wanted what was meant to be mine. I wanted my own path, my own person, and I wasn't competing for anyone else's. Throughout this whole ordeal, I have cried so many tears on so many nights, I could have drowned in them. But even still, there are tears still there, held back for so long they've created an ocean inside me. I've now moved from pain and shock to jadedness. I can honestly say that nothing surprises me anymore. How low people can go, how deeply they can betray you, all while smiling in your face. The only thing that would shock me now would be genuine accountability, for someone to actually own up to their two-faced behavior and the damage that they cause. There's so much trauma that was inflicted, a deliberate attempt to immobilize me, to keep me from rising and being successful in career, love, and life in general. But what hurts just as bad as what happened is what did not. No one was there for me. I had no one to help me, no one to support me, no one to show me the least bit of humanity while I was being ruthlessly attacked and emotionally abused. No one gave me a hug or wiped away my tears. No one offered any kind of comfort or helpful advice, not even any kind of words telling me that I would be okay. I was denied these basic human necessities, and there wasn't as much as a hint of kindness to be found anywhere. I've done so much shadow work trying to understand for a long time, resorting to self-blame and metaphorically beating myself up, thinking over and over, maybe if I had done this differently, maybe if I did that differently, maybe if I was like this. But after literally years of trying to understand what was wrong with me, that was making my life into what it was, I finally understood that there was nothing wrong with me. Not to say that I don't have flaws, because I certainly do. We all do. But as any wise observer would note, the core issue wasn't me. It was in how others perceive me. They categorized me without truly seeing me, threatened by what they refused to understand. And most of all, the problem was these people's shitty and downright sadistic behavior and the fact that it was allowed to go on for so long unchecked. It still is mind-blowing to me that there could be that many people who got pleasure from my pain when they all knew I didn't deserve it. Those who stood by and watched all of this transpire deserve special mention. They knew better. They could see what was happening, could have intervened, could have spoken up. Instead, some pretended to be friends while secretly relishing my downfall, whether in relationships or career advancement. They wanted me taken down a notch and out of the way. Most involved didn't want to get their hands dirty, so were thrilled at the chance to sit back and watch others break me down. In my opinion, they're the weakest of the bunch. Wanting to harm someone because of things that are not their fault, such as how they look or who loves them, but not having enough courage to actually do anything about it, and instead standing back and allowing an innocent person to be abused, ridiculed, humiliated, and harmed, is a whole other level of weak-ass bitch. At least these other psychopaths had the guts to do something about it. But regardless, these bitches will all have to live with the unfortunate karma that they will inevitably continue to experience, probably for as long as they live. Looking back at my childhood now, and having the knowledge that I have obtained, I can see the patterns. The way we tend to attract relationships that mirror our early family dynamics, processing old wounds through new relationships. I found myself surrounded by men who didn't understand women, and by women who didn't have any sort of self-confidence or respect towards themselves or other women. Basically people who lacked emotional depth and maturity as well as common human decency. But here's what I know now. I'm not a category. I'm not a threat. I'm an individual with a divine gift, and those who tried to dim my light were really just showing their own darkness, which makes my light shine all the brighter. Their misperception of me says more about them than it ever did about me. I am not responsible for the projections of those who are too weak to self-reflect or to heal, and therefore resort to shoving their insecurities and weaknesses on others who they are intimidated by. Many men believe they understand women, but their knowledge comes primarily from other men, an outsider's perspective that's fundamentally flawed. They've built their understanding on a foundation of stereotypes and oversimplified rules. All women want this, or no woman responds like that. It's a black and white view that treats women as objects, ignoring our individual complexities and autonomy. Their approach to relationships is coldly transactional. They categorize women like trophies, the prettiest, the richest, the most accomplished, seeing us as status symbols rather than people. It's as if they're playing a game where women are collectible items to boost their social standing. When they spot someone they deem high value, they launch their game. And every move they make is a strategic play designed to accomplish their desired outcome, which in essence seems to be control and having their needs met while making sure to not meet the other person's as much as humanly possible. They hoard as much of their energy as they can so they have more to spread around and share with others. This mechanical view of women extends to other aspects of relationships. Some men believe in these automatic triggers, like having a child together creating an unbreakable bond, or if you take her V card, she'll love you forever. They see women as robots with programmable emotions. Push the right button and you'll get unwavering devotion. This perspective strips away our autonomy and humanity. I've witnessed this mindset firsthand when one man told me about his advice from his father. If you take a girl's virginity, she'll love you forever and never leave. The absurdity of this statement was staggering. As a woman with my own thoughts, feelings, and experiences, I couldn't fathom being reduced to such a simplistic equation. The idea that a single experience would automatically program certain feelings regardless of how someone treated me was absolutely ridiculous. From a broader perspective, these attitudes often stem from echo chambers of toxic masculinity. When a woman rejects the treatment or stands up for herself, she's often labeled as there being something wrong with her, or being manipulative. The men, rather than questioning their assumptions, double down on their beliefs. Their fellow men, and sometimes even women who should know better, reinforce these harmful views, often targeting women who refuse to, quote, stay in their place. Perhaps one of the most disgusting aspects of this whole game is how kind, attractive women are viewed and treated. As I have now learned, and only experienced and healed beautiful women can fully understand, beautiful women don't get empathy or grace from others, with the rare exception of a healed woman or an emotionally mature man who is also healed, which are few and far between in this world. When a beautiful woman shows sensitivity or empathy, these qualities are twisted into weapons against her. She's just manipulative, they say, or she's full of herself. She's showing off. Every word and action gets exploited and viewed in the worst possible light, creating a no-win situation where a woman's genuine qualities become evidence of her supposed ulterior motives. The pattern often connects back to childhood experiences. Many women grow up in environments where their boundaries were not respected, where they weren't asked about their comfort levels or preferences. This early lack of autonomy can make it harder to recognize and enforce boundaries in adulthood. Meanwhile, men who grew up with narcissistic family members often lack the emotional intelligence and self-reflection needed to question their inherited beliefs about women. Looking at this dynamic from an outsider's perspective, it's clear how this cycle perpetuates itself. When women show vulnerability or seek help, they're often met with gaslighting and isolation. Like Belle in Beauty and the Beast, when she attempts to speak the truth of the beast, that Gaston has rallied all of the villagers to go attack. Her father is locked away and labeled as crazy to persuade her to marry Gaston, and then she's quickly dismissed and then also labeled crazy when she refuses. The presence of narcissistic or sociopathic individuals in these situations only amplifies the harm, as they actively work to undermine women's credibility and self-confidence and respect. The solution to this starts with recognizing that healthy relationships, whether parent-child or remote or romantic or platonic, must be built on mutual respect for autonomy and boundaries. Children should be taught that their bodies and choices matter, that they can question authority respectfully, and that their feelings are valid. This foundation helps create adults who can maintain healthy boundaries and recognize when others are trying to violate them. In the end, these patterns reveal more about the perpetrators than their targets. Men who resort to these tactics often struggle with their own insecurities and a lack of emotional development. Their need to control and diminish women stems from their inability to handle equal, respectful relationships. But understanding this does not excuse their behavior. It simply helps us recognize these patterns and protect ourselves from those who would deny our humanity. In my personal situation, as I suspect a lot of others can relate to, there's a covert, malignant narcissist at the core of this whole thing, or two. Now, while I thought I had learned what a narcissist was and what to look for, I had barely tapped the surface prior to this experience. One of the most important things that all of this has taught me is that my intuition is so extremely powerful and accurate that it does not make any kind of sense from a logical standpoint, because it does not have anything to do with logic. And while I do pride myself as being one of the rare humans that has common sense and an ability to self-reflect and use logic, my intuition is in a whole other category and league all by itself. As I mentioned, I'm extremely observant, and the way my mind works is nothing short of a level of genius that I haven't encountered often, at least not to my knowledge. My outer appearance and personality masks how intuitive, intelligent, and intellectual I actually am, which pretty much could be considered my secret weapon at this point. I am not under any illusions that this is all because of my strength and skill. The reason I have these abilities is none other than the Most High himself. I was gifted these abilities specifically for my divine purpose that God has designed for me to accomplish in this lifetime. And that is one of the main facts that all of these sadistic individuals fail to comprehend, even to this day. They've tried to steal, siphon, harvest, and drain me of my divine energy and spiritual gifts. My intuition alone is highly sought after to a point where it's almost incomprehensible. But these people who seek to steal what is mine for their own personal gain are ignorant to the fact that they're trying to steal my connection to God. It is the Holy Spirit that dwells within me that gives me my intuitive nudges, my uncanny ability to obtain knowledge that I have no logical way of having, and the way that my mind can pick up on patterns of behavior and discrepancies in people's words and actions is absolutely God. I am literally a human lie detector, and this experience was meant to show me just how powerful and accurate my intuition is, and just how protected I am from evil beings who wish to oppose my purpose. Before this whole nightmare, I believed that most people were inherently good and had good intentions towards others. but this experience has literally made me reevaluate my whole life, how the world works, and how people actually are. I have learned that people who think and live in a way similar to myself are actually very rare. And what instead is commonly found is people who are fake, who are liars, and who put on a mask and an act in front of others every day to make it appear that they are like that, which absolutely blew my mind at first. The absolute absurdity of the whole thing made it extremely hard to uncover the truth of the horrible situation that I had found myself in. Because I could not even fathom that people could be this evil, I was clueless as to where these attacks were coming from, or why this was all happening. It didn't take me very long to figure out that the devil was coming at me to try and stop me from my purpose and from experiencing true love and union with my divine counterpart. But I could never have imagined in a million years that the people I saw religiously and I believed to be, quote, good people, were working together behind the scenes to make me lose my stability, my sanity, and my life. Because of my ignorance to this being a possibility, I was not able to understand all of the intuitive nudges that I received when I was going through this. I couldn't understand why I felt so uncomfortable around these people, and of course I assumed that it was me. I must be having anxiety. I must be dealing with some kind of mental issue or emotional turbulence that I didn't fully understand. But it had to be me, right? Because the alternative is that the problem was everyone else, which is crazy, right? Wrong. Looking back now, I can see everyone for exactly who they are, which also means I can see exactly what they were doing. Like I said, I noticed everything. I clocked everything that was said, every tone of voice, the body language, how people acted around certain other people, and how I felt those intuitive nudges that progressed into my intuition screaming at me. At the time, I was told I was paranoid. I was overthinking. I was reading something wrong. None of those things were true. I was told that's just the way they are, which I have since learned is a very common statement used describing a narcissist, whether the person making the statement understands that fully or not. In reality, what was happening is these people had started their covert operation to make me question myself and eventually doubt my own reality and lose my sanity. How common this type of collaboration actually is in this day and age is quite disturbing. My heart aches for those who had this done to them before social media blew up, because the only way that I found out that other people were experiencing the same abuse was that I found this angel online in the form of a young woman reading tarot cards on Instagram. This earth angel had started stepping into her purpose and speaking out on the injustices that had been done towards her and her counterpart, which were strangely similar to my own experiences. I remember thinking, oh, thank God it's not just me. And this gave me a new fire to use to fight back. I now knew where to start looking for information to piece together what was happening to me. God had put it on my heart to start making videos probably about a year before I actually started. I was very self-conscious about being on camera, as I'm sure most of us are. But of course, I also had evil witch bitches working overtime to send mental magic and all kinds of spells to attack and mess with my self-confidence and my looks, among other things. They wanted me to feel like I was ugly, like no one would believe me, and I could only imagine the kind of ridicule that would come for speaking my truth. But considering that had already been going on behind the scenes for years, when I had never done anything to anyone, that was really the least of my worries. These individuals, specifically this karmic third-party psychopath and the mother-in-law from hell, spent a considerable amount of time and effort attacking my looks and my confidence, since these are what seemed to trigger them the most. For a time, I remember feeling that my outer appearance had been dwindling without any logical reason. And of course, the attacks on my finances that were meant to block any source of income or help meant that I could not take care of myself the way that I wanted to. Where usually I would dye my hair or get highlights, more often than not my hair was this mousy brown, and I was starting to get grays at an alarming rate. Despite the fact that I had been using less chemical treatments on my hair, it was looking more dull and lifeless than it ever had. My hair had stopped growing. It seemed to not go past a certain length below my shoulders. Now, I can see that this had started happening all at the same time as these other attacks. I've always had a lot of hair. Not excessively long, but thick. When I would get my hair done, people would always comment that I had a lot of hair, because at first glance it didn't appear to be as thick as it actually is. Because I straightened my hair almost daily, shedding and excess hairs was nothing new to me. But I was now losing hairs at a much faster rate, and my hair was visibly thinning, which made no sense. The only other times that I had stopped dyeing my hair and hadn't been straightening it as often, my hair grew to the longest it had ever been. Now, granted, for part of this time I had been taking prenatals, which I factored in, but even still, it was not making sense. And then there was my teeth. I mentioned that I had struggled with addictions, but I had always made sure to take care of my teeth and brush them every day and use mouthwash. Specifically because I had seen so many people lose their teeth from doing drugs, and that was not something that I was willing to deal with. But, although I had been consistent with the care of my teeth, and I was no longer doing a bunch of drugs, my teeth started literally crumbling. It was a long, slow process, but over a period of a year or so, my teeth had been diminishing to an embarrassing state, which significantly affected my confidence and my desire to make videos speaking out about these injustices. I tried some temporary fixes I ordered from Amazon and eventually got it to the point where you couldn't see obvious holes in my smile, and I just sucked it up. But the attacks on my appearance still continue to this day, although their effects are almost non-existent. I digress. So the entire time I had been experiencing these attacks, every time that something would happen that I suspected was from witchcraft, I would first try and explain it with logic. People who are genuinely interested in knowing the truth will try to prove themselves wrong. So when we suspect something to be true, we will not only look for evidence affirming it, but also evidence that could debunk it. This concept is foreign to the kinds of people that I'm describing as my attackers. Narcissists operate in exactly the opposite manner. They will tell half-truths, twist narratives, and flat-out lie so that people think that they are right and that they tell the truth. They are not interested in the truth whatsoever. They are solely interested in being right or being viewed as someone who has knowledge and wisdom. Someone who lives in their authenticity and is dedicated to knowing the truth exposes these types of people for who they are simply by existing, which is why we are targeted and attacked without provocation. They intend to tarnish our reputation and therefore our credibility. So when we finally do speak out on the injustices we've been subjected to, everyone will think that we're crazy. You're a liar, delusional, etc. They've already been hard at work behind the scenes turning people against you and gathering flying monkeys to join their side in this one-sided beef that you know nothing about. All of this carefully crafted web of deceit starts unraveling once we step into our authenticity. Once we see the truth, we can't unsee it, and we can see right through these narcissists. See, their power depends on maintaining their facade and keeping up with their illusions and manipulations. But you can't manipulate someone who sees right through you. You can't convince us that we are mistaken by telling carefully crafted lies. We are human lie detectors. Truth doesn't need to be defended. It doesn't need propaganda. It doesn't even need believers. Truth simply is. It just waits to be revealed. Chosen ones act as mirrors to others, reflecting back to them exactly who they are, which is a narcissist's greatest fear. The moment they chose one of God's chosen to target, they had already lost. But of course, they don't realize this until it's far too late. After we are broken down and then rise and take our power back, there is nothing they can do to us. Every attempt at manipulation or controlling the narrative only further exposes them. The mask starts to slip, and little by little, everyone will start to see them for exactly who they are. And that is where their game ends. They lose. God wins. All right, so I'm going to end it here, and I will see you on the next one. Remember to stay prayed up, love yourself, love others. God loves you, I love you, and I hope you all have a great day.